Good morning. First of all, I really would like to welcome our rising sixth grade. For those families new to the secondary, welcome. We're really looking forward to getting to know you well, you and your students, your children. So this is a special one. Our webinar is for sixth grade. We do have sixth grade, because of that transitional time to secondary, we do want to explain a bit about what we'll be doing to help our new sixth graders transition to sixth grade really in a positive way. Okay, there's a lot of changes I know you're excited about, and we're really excited to have you join us. So we're going to go over a little bit about that today. But first of all, I do want to thank and welcome your parents and also our sixth grade students to the secondary. So as we were talking about, this is our last webinar. We had them for each grade level. And, you know, COVID-19 has really made our world turned upside down and has challenged us to rethink the way we live. However, during these difficult times, we draw strength from our community. And I've been thankful for the support and partnership of our teachers, our students, our parents over these last 4 months. The webinar today, we're going to address some of the questions parents had during our opening webinar last Friday. And we'll also provide time for you to type in questions into chat at the end of the webinar. Your questions are really important to us and they help inform our planning. Our current situation is very fluid and it changes all the time. And as new protocols and our webinar today is going to be in English. However, please feel free to post questions in Portuguese if it's easier. Today's webinar is dedicated to grade 6 and ALLI. ALLI is a special program we have for new students joining us, but we're going to focus mostly on grade 6 for today. And if there are any ALLI parents with us today, we'll be having a special time to communicate more about that program at a later date. But you can also ask questions at the end of this presentation. So let us begin. As it relates to scheduling scenarios, we know that things are not going to be 100% predictable and fall nicely into a picture that we would all prefer. But please know that depending on the anticipated future waves or the spikes of the virus, we have established a really nimble design from a variety of models which utilizes a strategic framework to deploy the right model at the right moment. The models are driven by the numbers of days students, faculty, and staff are physically on campus. So for example, a standard 5-day model for 1 month may be applicable, while what we're calling a 4-10 cycle for a dedicated period of time may be utilized in response to the demands of the community's health. Designing specific models and defining the number of students on campus at one time builds a deeper, multi-purpose toolkit to respond to uncertain health situations later on. So what I'd like to do today is let us concentrate on scenario 4. If you look at the chart, it's called the 4-10 model. So regardless of the day we will return back to campus, this is the model we will use for students, faculty, and staff. As in all the scenarios, we have focused on health and well-being, safety, and space restrictions. So looking at this chart, you found scenario 4. About the group sizes, there's no gathering size that can eliminate all risk. But there is a threshold between curbing the epidemic and having it spread based on the number of friends in a social network. Thus, our approach is to limit the threshold of the network effectiveness and reduce the transmission opportunities by having students work together in small groups. We're calling them circles of approximately 12 students or less. About the mixing of the groups, the recommendations on limiting group size are based on the idea that the risk of a larger gathering that is 10 times larger will offer 100 times more transmission opportunities. Thus, limiting groups and gatherings to small social groups and small social networks will eliminate and reduce the transmission opportunities. And finally, this is really addressed to our rising sixth graders. We want to differentiate our learning independence. So we believe it is our youngest students coming into secondary, which is sixth grade, and those on the transitional grade levels making the switch from primary division to secondary division that were prior to a face-to-face learning environment, because they haven't yet acquired all the skills to work independent and online. So our sixth grade will be coming in first. I do want to talk about why we're doing the 4-10 strategy. The 4-10 strategy includes 4 days of face-to-face learning and then 10 days of remote learning or at home online learning. And then the next 2 weeks, again, 4 days of face-to-face learning, followed by 10 days of remote learning. So why are we doing this? If a person gets infected, they reach their peak infectiveness during their 10-day lockdown period or at home period. And in that way, they avoid infecting any of the others in their circle. 7 days of monitoring is sufficient to identify 99% of symptomatic cases, and this will restrict the viral transmission. Avenues will adjust and adapt plans as we stay responsive to changing health climates and directives from key authorities, and as we learn from our own experience. On the next slide, you'll see how does the 4-10 model work. So we kind of broke this up into groupings for you to have a better understanding. So you see, it's really important for social distancing. We'll have signage in the building. Elevators will be restricted to those who are in a wheelchair or can't do the stairs. We'll use outdoor spaces. But really what is very important is to reduce the density and the mixing. So we're not going to be able to have busing or carpooling at this time. Our meetings will have to be online. Parents will not be allowed to come onto campus, or drivers or nannies. We'll have all our high cardio activities such as athletics and WAM will happen inside the classrooms, but the bigger ones where we're mixing, we can't do at this time. They have to be offline. And then lunches in the classrooms as well. We'll try our best, but we cannot promise to be able to keep siblings together in the 4-10 model. So we ask parents to make sure that if one sibling is showing symptoms and is in the 10-day at home period, please do not send their sibling if they are in the 4-day on campus period. We are really relying on families to not expose themselves to high-risk situations. If someone does contact the virus, they will not be allowed on campus. If someone is infecting in the circle, we'll follow the established 14-day stay at home. So the whole circle would have to stay at home of 12 or less students. Through the contact tracing, and others might be also on a 14-day stay at home period. Now, Mr. McNamara is going to talk to you a little bit about some of our on and off campus experiences.
Mm-hmm. Thanks so much, John. Good morning, everyone. My name is Tim McNamara, and I'm an Associate Division Head, and I work with students and teachers in grades 6 through 12 next year. Students, we're excited to welcome you to the secondary division, and families, I look forward to getting to know you throughout your time at Avenues, and hope we have a chance to meet soon. I want to talk a little bit about how we've designed our learning, given the constraints that we face in terms of when students can physically be on campus. So what we really focused on for first semester next year is how we can provide personalized learning for students that feels coherent to them. And I think this is particularly important for 6th grade students who are transitioning from primary to a secondary environment where there are typically more teachers, kind of more movement between classrooms. So what we did was think about how we can create integrated and interdisciplinary courses so that students felt a coherent experience throughout their learning. So what we moved toward are co-taught interdisciplinary projects constituting the core curriculum for our students' first semester. So that would include art, science, world course, English, and Portuguese, participating together in a project. Also, HIP and WAM classes and additional programs will also be integrated into the projects where the teachers of those courses can use their expertise, but also have those experiences for students under the umbrella of these larger projects. Another part of the personalized approach is to have a smaller number of teachers per student. So your student will have a main kind of point of contact teacher on campus and just a couple others that they'll be interacting with. This will allow our teachers to get to know students quite well and also create a communal experience for students. Additionally, we can provide additional support for students through our Dean's program, our SST, so student support teams, and also our language support programs. In terms of on campus, these 4 days when your students will be coming to campus are incredibly valuable for us, where we can build community and do the sorts of things that can't be replicated at home. So as we thought about that, we have been prioritizing with our teachers the following for our on-campus priorities: collaboration, community building, and hands-on learning. So students working together on projects, building things, getting to know one another, and then also maintaining and generating meaningful relationships with the adults here on campus. So we really are working to maximize the time when students are here to help them connect to our community and do the sorts of things that are really engaging, particularly when they're working in groups. One final note is, in addition to our on-campus touch points where students will be working with us here, we are going to be integrating some synchronous learning online to promote deeper learning and engagement throughout the 14-day cycles. John, I'm going to pass to you and you can unmute, please.
Okay, thank you. The next couple of slides are some visuals to help you understand how we're bringing in different grade levels to the campus. So on this slide, you see the open campus alternative school hours, or for the 410 model. So our 6th grade and ALLI will start on campus classes August 10th, okay? So they'll actually come to the campus, to school, starting at 9 a.m. and ending at 1 p.m. And there will be an option for students to stay in their classrooms until 3:30 for any additional support, or to arrive and depart with siblings in the primary division, because the primary division will also have classes starting on this day. There will be optional lunch where students can have lunch in the classroom, or they can leave and have lunch at home. What I do want to clarify, however, students will be permitted to stay in their classrooms until 3:30 for additional support, or to arrive and depart with their siblings in the primary division. However, arriving or departing outside of the instructional core hours of 9 to 1 must be set up before classes start, and they cannot change from day to day. This is really important to understand because we need to know, and really we need to keep our circles of 12 tracking them to make sure that they're not mixing with others so that we can control. And we need to know when they're arriving and when they're leaving. So you need to clear that with us before school starts, and then we will know when they'll be arriving at school or when they'll be going back home. On this slide, you can see grade 6 and ALLI, August 10th, 9 to 1, with lunch provided in the classroom, or they can leave to have lunch at home. On the next slide, here's another visual, okay? So here you can see that we have the 6th grade will be coming on August 10th. They'll be in class on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then they will be offline or at home for the next 10 days. Returning to school on August 24th for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and then another cycle of 10 days at home. As I mentioned earlier, and I'll repeat just one more time so we understand it clearly, the reason we're doing this The 4 days of face-to-face learning and then 10 days of remote learning over the next 2 weeks is because if a student is infected, they reach their peak infectiveness during their lockdown period or when they're home in those 10 days. And this avoids infecting other students and teachers and faculty. 7 days of monitoring sufficient to identify 99% of symptomatic cases. And this will restrict the viral transmission. On the next slide, it's just another visual for you to understand how we're using the building. As I mentioned, primary will be having classes going 6th grade on 8th of September. 6th grade, 8th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade will have classes for those 4 days. Now, we have a huge building, as we all know, and in the secondary, we have 3 floors. So 4 grade levels come in at a time, and they're dispersed in circles of 12 throughout the building on different floors. This helps us to keep the social distancing. But it also explains why we can't have everyone come back to campus at the same time, because we need to keep them in small groups of 12, and that means more rooms, and also they're with 1 teacher each. So for our 6th grade students, you'll see how they'll be coming in as of August 10th, and then they'll be coming with 4 grade levels starting the 8th of September. On the next slide is going to be the start and stop times.
So good morning. My name is Mike Macarone. I think I know some of you. It's good to see some familiar names in the chat. And I'm a global academic dean with Avenues. I want to talk a little bit about the curriculum and how some of what Mr. Chillo just shared about the schedule, about the 410 model, about our start and end times will work with our curriculum in grade 6 and in our ALLI program. And so in this slide, as we talked about, the start times will be a little bit later than they would have been last semester. And so our expected arrival time is 9 o'clock. Our expected dismissal is 1 o'clock, and students can stay optionally until 3:30. And the idea behind this is that for our on-campus days, because students will be in small groups with 1 teacher, they won't have an opportunity to see all of their different teachers on any given week. So there will still be some online instruction happening for those weeks where they are on campus. As Mr. McNamara shared, we really want to prioritize that on-campus experience for hands-on learning, for the kinds of activities that students can't do on their computers or at home. And so we will still have things like math assignments, math homework, for instance, that could happen in the morning or in the afternoon outside of those on-campus instruction sessions. So I want to talk a little bit about what the 6th grade curriculum will look like next year and how we're hoping to use this 410 model to bring that curriculum to life. So our first intention for 6th grade is to help all of our students transition to the secondary division, whether you're coming from our primary division at Avenues or from another school. In order to do that, we're really emphasizing small groups and teacher mentorship. So every 6th grade student will be paired with a teacher mentor, a leader for what we're calling their circle of students, a small group of 10 to 12 students who they'll be working with regularly. And that teacher will really become this student's guide as they enter the secondary division. In fact, the whole first month of student classes, this teacher will be kind of the lead for a project that all of our faculty in 6th grade are working to put together right now. As with all of our grade levels at Avenues, a focus for 6th grade will be English and Portuguese literacy. And I'll talk a little bit more about how that's being built into our curriculum. One of the things that I think is most exciting for our 6th grade program next year is that we're going to have students rotating through different projects organized by what we're calling modules. And I want to share some examples of those project modules. A result of this is that students will have at most 3 courses at one time that they have to focus on, which means that when they log into their online session at the beginning of the day, or when they arrive on campus, there are really only 3 big things that they have to think about. And we hope that in this hybrid or online environment that makes the student experience really clear, and also that they can build those relationships with those teachers over time. Lastly, one of the highlights of our secondary program is our electives. And we are going to talk a little bit more later about how those electives will be situated mostly in our second semester, but also how we will have opportunities for enrichment for students starting in the first semester. So for grade 6, one of the things our faculty have been working on are what we're calling signature learning experiences through project modules. A project module is an integration of different disciplines. So it's English with world course, art, science, our high intensity practice or HIP program, which focuses on developing writing skills and problem solving skills through executive function, as well as our wellness and movement program. In addition, these modules will have chances for students to connect with their math and Portuguese classes. And at the core of each one of these interdisciplinary projects will be reading and writing, so that literacy carries the theme of the project forward. Students will rotate through 3 of these modules each semester. So over the course of the year, they'll have 6 different project experiences that connect with the kinds of things that we expect students to be really interested in, potentially follow forward into careers down the line, or into potential passions for programs like our mastery program. So our teachers will work with 1 or 2 sections of students at a time on these specialized topics throughout the year. And I want to give a few examples of what that could look like. So here is a sample schedule for our 6th grade. Again, our teachers are working right now to put together some interesting projects for the first semester. But what we know so far is that our first 4 weeks together, all of our 6th graders will be focused on a study of the self, an introduction to the secondary division, where they are helped by their teachers to understand what it means to be a secondary division student, how learning works and how their brain works as a student in 6th grade and in the secondary. And we'll be working in these small groups with teacher mentors. So all of our students will have one personal guide for those first 4 weeks to this project-based idea. Then we'll begin to rotate through different projects. Here are just a couple of examples of projects that our 6th graders will be doing next year. One is an Earth and Mars project called Blue versus Red, which if you know any current 6th grade students, you can ask them about. They just finished and had their showcase for their Blue versus Red project online, and it was one of the highlights of the year. Another project would be about civilization design. And in each of these projects, students are connecting different disciplines. They're developing the skills of science or art, of English and world course through their project-based learning. In these different projects, students will be on campus every other week in alternating weeks to focus on one interdisciplinary project in small groups. The courses will be run primarily online with on-campus touchpoints, and we'll have support on those alternate weeks until we can be on campus in larger groups. So in weeks 5 through 12, we will combine those groups from the first week of the project to make bigger sections online, but when we're on campus, we'll stay in those smaller groups. And those teacher mentors will continue to work with our students throughout the year to support learning and also to be that personal guide so that every student has an individual teacher to work with, as well as their deans. Here's an example of what one of these projects might look like come to life. This is an example of one of our 8th grade projects called the Unseen Project, practicing social activism through art. And in this project, students study text and image to produce an artwork, and then they actually sell that artwork. They've put together and organize a publisher's fair and sell this artwork to donate to an institution that's aligned with the project purpose. One of the things that I want to point out is that at the bottom of this experience, you can see 4 different world elements. This is the core of our curriculum. And so each of these individual projects focuses on areas of curriculum ranging from the arts to design and entrepreneurship, economics, national history. And you can see that our projects build on more than just one traditional subject area. So when students are working in these projects, they're learning about the skills and tools that they need for each of those different disciplines, as well as those concepts that we would expect to be covered in the curriculum. Over the course of the year, students will participate in 6 different projects that cover all of the content for 6th grade and help to develop all of those skills in each of the subject areas. And here's just another example of our project module, our Blue versus Red project, where students would choose a team, either the Earth team, the Blue team, or the Red team, the Mars team, and then develop speeches and visual aids to elaborate on their decisions. And here you can see a different set of elements on the bottom. things like universe, earth, and sustainability in a more science-focused project that also focuses on developing speeches, writing skills, presentation skills, and more. So in summary, our first 4 weeks, all of our grade 6 faculty will be working as teacher mentors with small groups, and 6th graders will be working through orientation and onboarding. We'll be introducing all of our subjects in that time. But then after week 4, we'll begin to focus more on our project groups, our math, and our Portuguese classes. And again, those are the 3 focus areas for each student: math, Portuguese, and their project work. And those courses all will be primarily online with on-campus touchpoints to support those groups, so that in this hybrid model, students have an opportunity to meet with all of their faculty over time. So on our next slide, you can see a few of the structures behind our project modules. The conceptual understandings and literacy skills that our faculty are working to build in include particular reading and writing for each project, the technical skill development in different subject areas that we would expect, and other anchor texts and reading experiences that bring the theme of the project to life. What I think is the most exciting thing about each of these learning experiences is that our teachers are working really hard to find authentic connections to the kinds of things students might do in the real world. So we want to connect authentically with community partners. We want to have extended learning opportunities, which might mean bringing a guest visitor virtually into our classroom, learning more about institutions in the community. And lastly, all of our projects culminate in final products that show students deeper learning. In addition, students will develop a sense of agency and ownership. And as they transition to secondary division, we want to help students to make good decisions about their own learning, find ways to showcase their work, and have a sense of their abilities as a student, their strengths, and their areas for growth. In addition, our teachers are working together to make sure that our schedule is flexible, allows students to learn independently, and find those passions that we want them to explore that they might continue throughout their academic career. So I wanted to talk one more time about this on-campus versus online experience. Again, for our grade 6 students, when they're on campus, they'll be in circle groups of 10 to 12 students with a mentor teacher for 4 days. And the idea, as Mr. McNamara shared, is for that time to be focused on collaboration, on hands-on learning, things that can't happen at home, like discussion, scientific lab investigation, and studio art practices. But there will be a balance of on-campus and online work on those days. And our focus is about building community, supporting students, and individualizing our learning. For our online experience, classes will continue to meet either as a whole group or in smaller breakout groups at synchronous moments, or moments where everyone is together online. Teachers will also continue to hold office hours for individual student support, when students can reach out and join a teacher in a Zoom meeting so that they can ask personal questions. And there'll be a balance of time where all the students are together or students are able to work independently. Lastly, this ratio of smaller teacher to student groups will support feedback and student learning so that each teacher is focusing on a smaller group of students at any given time and can really give those students the feedback that they need to be successful. And so to talk more about how we can support student success in this 410 environment and in general next year, I want to introduce Ms. Guzman.
Thank you, Mr. Macaron. Good morning, everybody. My name is Catalina Guzman. I am the Director of Student Wellbeing, and I'm going to talk a little bit about deans. Deans are one of the hallmarks, if you will, of the secondary division process. And the dean really is there to serve as a point person between the school, the family, and the student. So the dean really should be seen by students and parents in the 6th grade as an ally, as an advocate, as somebody that they can go to with any and all questions, whether they are about academics, schedule, a teacher, friends, social or emotional difficulties, transitions, anything at all that you can think of, you can go to your dean. What we're really excited about for this new school year is that since the 6th grade will be coming on campus on their own, it means that all of the 6th grade deans will also be on campus for that first cycle. We can't unfortunately do that for the rest of the cycles, but at least for the first one, while students are really getting used to the secondary school, the system, where they have to go, their classrooms, the deans will be available to help with all of those transitions. The deans will also still be available to any and all students and families for one-on-one meetings, but unfortunately, given the 410 model, all of those meetings will have to happen online via Zoom. You can easily set up a meeting with your dean. It's just a matter of sending them a quick email. They will respond, send you the Zoom link, and you're off and running. You'll also see that the way that the deans have been set up is they are actually set up to really fall in line with the group of groups. So as Mr. Chilella and Mr. Macaron were explaining, the classes will be split into these smaller circles, we're calling them, of no more than 12 students. And you'll see that the deans have also been split across the groups. This will allow the deans to really be able to dig deep in terms of academic progress, what's happening in the classrooms, and make sure that that classroom experience, those moments of connection, all of those pieces that we feel are really important about the return to campus are honored and highlighted with the help and support of the deans. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ms. Guzman. So as I hope has been made clear by Mr. Macaron's examples, we're really trying to design projects that are going to engage students in their academic work. But we also know that it's important for students to be able to have choice in the topics that they pursue and the activities they get engaged in. When we were on campus full time, our middle grade students had the opportunity to use the last hour of their day to participate in an elective or an academic support class. And I wanted to talk a little bit about how that's going to look first semester. So as we transition back to school in August, we're going to be thinking about how we can get students in and out of the building safely and work in this new circle configuration. And for those reasons, we are going to put our electives and clubs and enrichment on hold during August. But in September, our plan, of course, this is pending, the health concerns and so forth, but our plan is to open electives and enrichment in the September to December timeframe that will be optional for students, where they can engage in, club activities, mastery and music, for example, and other things that are related to their interests. During the second semester that will begin in January, February, if we are able to mix students, then we hope to be back to our regular program where the end of the day is reserved for these enrichment activities.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. What I just want to highlight and really make a point of, as you can see, we're really counting on having the sixth grade start on campus on August 10th. However, I do want to put a however out there. This will depend on the public health in August and the directives of the current situation when we're ready to open. There could be a possibility that they'll still start August 10th, but it might be online. But we're putting everything and planning and getting ready for them to join us on campus. But once again, depending on the health situation in August, we will let you know, of course, as soon as we have to make that decision, whether or not they will return to campus on August 10th or they'll have their online classes on August 10th. This next slide is just to reinforce and to let you know, since you're new to the secondary, together with the teachers and the students and the families, to support academic achievement. So any support that they might need, we'll continue with that. It'll just be online or working through the teacher that's in their small circle of 12. Another exciting thing, I know rising sixth graders, current fifth graders, I'm sure you're super excited about this, is you'll be getting a MacBook Air. All our students in secondary have MacBook Airs. And what's new this year for all secondary students and teachers, we're going to be also having an iPad and an Apple Pencil. The reason for this is going to help you with your studies when you're on campus for those 4 days and when you're at home online for 10 days. You will be receiving your technology when you're on campus, because we'll walk you through how to set it up, how to use it, how we use it in the day-to-day activities at school. We also have Canvas, which is a program that will help you to submit your lessons and to talk to your teachers and for your parents to see how you're doing. So we'll walk you through all of this so that you really get a good understanding and to start on the right foot in the secondary division. You'll have a really positive experience. And then finally, we're creating material kits. So anything that you might need to do on those 10 days at home, you might not have those materials at home. So you'll have a kit of materials that will accompany you in the program that you're working on. It might be something with robotics, or it might be something in science. You'll have your materials at school, and also a kit to take home to continue your studies for those 10 days online. And now I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Pita. Paulo Pita is our Senior Operations Manager, and he's going to talk to you about and explain to you what we've been doing about the campus to make it safe upon your return.
Thank you, Mr. Chilalo. So how can we ensure the safety of our community? The most important thing is contact tracing. It needs to be efficient, it needs to be fast whenever we have confirmed or suspected cases. Now, this is the strength about the 410 model, because it makes contact tracing very easy. So because each circle, each group of students and the teacher can easily be identified whenever we have a suspected case, and this group of people will have to stay at home going through distance learning for a period of time. It's important to mention that the 410 model includes all faculty, staff, third-party staff, the cleaning crew, maintenance, food, security, and also the nurses. So it's really a joint effort, and to make sure that no one will mix, so groups will not mix, and community infection within our community, within our premises, are going to be very, very controlled, most probably inexistent. So about our facilities, we will meet or exceed established safety standards as to make sure to make every effort to reduce community infection. And to make sure that happens, we had the support of our global research and development team, and also the expertise from the opening of our campus in Shenzhen. Now, the situation in Shenzhen is a little bit different because they haven't confirmed the case since April, but we have been exchanging a lot of protocols and ideas and knowledge, both with the São Paulo campus and the New York campus. So we first understood the risk premises to make sure that we were getting things right. What is riskier? Is it being in contact? Is it touching things, or being near people in large gatherings? So we understood those premises, and we mapped the risk levels of all the areas at the campus. We continuously study the scientific knowledge bases, new articles every day. Sometimes they come out. Yesterday, for example, there was a new, very relevant article about immunity, about the markers of immunity, and why the IgG tests are not a very good marker for immunity. So we need to keep updating on those. As for the cleaning protocols, they were developed with the support of Sodexo's hospital division, and they rely heavily on technology, using electrostatic sprays, UV germicidal irradiation when it's possible. We will also have thermal cameras, both fixed and handheld, to measure the temperature of whoever is arriving at the campus. And it's very interesting because it can measure the temperature from a distance, from 1 meter, 2 meters, or whatever the distance we set. So it's safer for both the person who's getting measured and the person who's measuring the temperature. We increased the number of hand sanitation stations, increased the amount of natural ventilation throughout the building. Our health office, whenever anyone needs to see the nurses, we now are retrofitting the space with hospital-grade HVAC system to make sure it's as safe as possible, with renovation of air many times an hour. And we understand as well that human behavior is a risk factor. So we're training staff members on preventing the transmission of COVID-19. Now, it's interesting to mention too that we've been getting the help from students, from student projects to every kind of student projects, even helping develop an app for health checks before leaving home, and helping develop Arduino systems to substitute the touch buttons in the elevator. So this has been very, very interesting. Mr. McNamara, if you could just, okay, thank you. And about mask use, we're following CDC, we intend to follow CDC guidelines, and also we consulted with specialists last week. And at this moment, we understand that masks are mandatory during arrival, dismissal, and every time when social distancing is challenging. We also understand, though, that within the groups in the classroom with this one specific teacher and these students, mask use could be more flexible. Masks are not, we don't think that masks should be worn for long periods of time. So in the classroom, within the group, it's going to be more, we intend it to be more flexible. We will provide each student with 2 cloth masks. This is the recommendation from the CDC for this specific scenario, schools and gatherings such as schools, for people to use cloth masks. And we will also have available surgical disposable masks for anyone who needs them. And back to you, John. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And then finally, communication. What I do want to campus face-to-face classes, but only online classes, please reach out to us and let us know. You can let us know this by sending us an email at enrollment-sp@avenues.org and explain that your son or daughter is at risk and cannot do face-to-face classes at this time until the situation becomes better. And then we'll adjust our time and make sure that we can support them online. And then finally, about drop off and pick up. We'll have detailed directions and visuals, maps indicating where the drop off and pick up locations will be. And we'll email them to all our parents before July 24th. So we'll make it really clear as to what those first days back on campus will look like and where your son or daughter will be dropped off and picked up. So once again, I know a lot of information's been given to you today. We do appreciate you joining us on this webinar. And now we're going to open it up to questions that you might have. So for the next more or less 15 minutes, we'll be able to answer some of your questions.
So I see a question here about ALLI and a little bit more about the ALLI program. So ALLI stands for the Avenues Language Learning Intensive. And ALLI is a program that we started this last semester. It's been a wildly successful pilot. Our first group of students, we have 14 students who've been studying with our ALLI program since January, and they have all had a really positive experience. The Avenues Language Learning Intensive is intended for students who are new to Avenues, who are academically the types of students that we would expect to accept to Avenues, but who need an additional support in language fluency, specifically with English language fluency. So the students come in and they study in this intensive small group for 1 semester, and then they join classes the following semester. So our ALLI students this year will be joining our 7th, 8th, and 9th grade classes next year. And we are currently enrolling students in our language learning intensive for the next semester. So students who are entering 6th, 7th, or 8th grade who need additional English language support in order to be prepared for an Avenues discussion-based classroom and project-based learning can apply to the Avenues Language Learning Intensive program, the ALLI program. And Lisa is here if there are other questions about the admissions for that program.
Just to add to that, we are going to have an event, what we call an inside look, and that will be on July 8th at 5:30 p.m. If you have any friends that you would like to recommend to the program, we'd be delighted to be able to host them and have a conversation.
You see here a group of how the circles are being set up. We worked very closely with the 5th grade teachers to make sure that those groups were set up to honor previous relationships. So yes, every group, students should find that they have at least one friend in the group, but we were trying to balance gender, background, and everything else. But every student within their group should have at least one friend, because the 5th grade teachers were the ones that really helped us design those groups.
There's another question here about break time. Will that be outdoors for children? Once again, we do have our circles of students, and we will have, like we have the terrace area, and we do have an outdoor court. So there'll be specific areas they can go to together with the teacher. And so we'll try to get them outdoors in some fresh air as much as possible, but they will not be mixing with other groups. That's the key.
There's a question here about the teachers for on campus and online and whether it will be the same teacher. So as we talked about a little bit earlier, the students will have a project group, a few teachers that are working with them on a project, as well as a math and a Portuguese teacher. And those teachers will work with them throughout the semester. Their circle leader, that teacher mentor on campus, will be one of those teachers. So they'll have one of those teachers that they're working with on campus, and all of those teachers will be working with them online as well. So they'll have opportunities for those in-person touch points, as well as opportunities to come together as a group outside of the campus.
So there's a question here about introducing families to the dean and to SST. All of that will be happening in the week leading up to school once the groups have been formalized and we actually have a better sense of what the structures will look like. But students and families can expect to receive a message from their new dean and from any SST support if they receive SST support happening before the start of school.
If there are any further questions or anybody, please, you can type them in at this time. The question here is if your child will be an ALLI. It's not, if your child is already enrolled in the 5th grade coming to 6th grade or new and enrolled in 6th grade, they will not be part of the ALLI program. The ALLI is for students who are applying and parents, those who have already been accepted into the program have been told. But it's a special program really for new families coming into school. Okay, for secondary, there's a question about differentiated education according to specific capabilities, for example, math. That's called tracking. We don't track students. We do support them, those who need additional help or those who need to be challenged. We do have some options, like we have also clubs that we have a math club or we have math lab. We do have science clubs. As they get older and into our junior, senior year, they can take advanced chemistry or they can take physics classes, advanced physics. So those options as well. But we're not a tracking school where kids are placed by ability and stay in a math track throughout their time. So I'd like to close now and just say thank you so much for joining us. It's a shame that our first time together has to be online. I know there's the passage ceremony tomorrow in the morning where the 5th graders will be becoming our 6th graders. And we're really, really excited to get to know them, each and every student. We'll do our best to do that online until we can meet with them physically in the building. And as parents, please reach out to us whenever you need. You have an amazing support team here. We have the deans, you have the teachers, you have me, you have the ADHs. We're all here to work to make it successful for your son or daughter. And we're always available. So reach out whenever. So at this time, I want to say thank you once again. We wish you a really safe school break, a healthy one for you and your family. And we look forward to seeing you either online or in person.